For the third episode of the Alexa podcast, we were joined by Teri Bertram, who recently ported the famous text-based video game Colossal Cave Adventure over to Amazon Alexa-enabled devices. We talked to her about video games, we talked to her about what Amazon needs to do to promote game development on Alexa-enabled devices, and much more. Enjoy. Hi, and welcome to episode 3 of the Alexa podcast, part of Voice First FM. Our sponsors for this show are Fourthcast, Fourthcast. Fourthcast turns your podcast into a custom Alexa skill. Get started at fourthcast.com. Our other sponsor is the Alexa Conference. The Alexa Conference is the annual gathering of Alexa developers and enthusiasts. Learn more and get registered at alexaconference.com. Kevin Old and I are your hosts. My name is Bradley Metrock. I'm CEO of a company called Score Publishing based here in Nashville, Tennessee. Kevin Old is a software developer for Lifeway. Kevin, say hello.
Hello.
We are thrilled to have with us Teri Bertram. Teri, say hello.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us. Teri has been around the video game industry a long time and just recently made news for porting the classic Colossal Cave Adventure to Alexa and the Amazon voice ecosystem. So Teri, let me start there. Actually, first, let me ask you, how long have you been around video games? How long have you been a game developer? Share with us in the audience some of your background.
Well, I've been playing games forever. I've been collecting games since the early 80s. I've been making games since the late 70s. I've worked for a number of gaming companies. I'm in the industry, and my life is games.
So, what was your impetus to take Colossal Cave Adventure and bring it over to Alexa?
That's a couple things. I mean, it's always been a dream of mine. I love Colossal Cave. I mean, it was called Advent when I first played it back in 1977. I was programming on a DEC 10, and that's where it was originally created by Willie Crowther and Don Woods. So the first time I played it, I loved it. It's a text adventure game on this big mainframe machine. And it was the first time I ever saw a game that talked to me and told me a story and didn't just add two numbers together. It was amazing. It was magic. So ever since I had that experience, and then later on other games came, Zork and whatnot, I always had a special place in my heart for Advent. And as it came out on different platforms, I always thought it would be neat if I could play it verbally. This is before the Echo ever came out. Well, once the Echo did come out, I thought, this is the platform to try it on. And when I took a break from work during last Christmas, I went ahead and spent the time. I bought myself an Echo and decided to port it.
That's pretty awesome. So let me ask you, there's a few games, I'm definitely not an encyclopedic resource on this, but there's a few games I'm aware of that are currently on Alexa-enabled devices. And to my knowledge, I think the first one, or certainly the first mainstream one, the first one that got media attention, to my knowledge, was the Wayne investigation. Are you familiar with that?
Right, yeah. Yeah, that one uses real audio and a new adventure system that was compiled with.
Yeah, so it was a marketing initiative for the movie Batman versus Superman, and they created, this Alexa skill called the Wayne investigation, in which, it's got all these professionally recorded audio assets, and you investigate the murder of Bruce Wayne's parents. There have been some other ones here or there, but it's my feeling that we're not going to see games take off until Amazon, and just, we're talking about Alexa, so, we're mentioning Amazon, but any of these companies, Google, Microsoft, Apple, whoever, until the tech companies allow the game developers to monetize the games that they're developing however they choose. Can you talk about that and share with us your perspective on how you see what direction you think that needs to go to open up the world of game development for these platforms?
No, I totally agree. I mean, the only reason that I did this is it's a labor of love. So it took a lot of time and effort and testing, but I'm in love with the game, so I did it. But I'm not making anything on it. If anything, I could be charged by having this out there if a lot of people play it. So yeah, it's a very negative feeling there. Luckily, Amazon does allow for a free tier, and they offer extra money if you go over that tier. You have to sign up for that, which I did. But the point is that I'm not making any money on this. Nobody is. So yeah, if they had a store, something like the App Store that allowed you to set a price, then yeah, we would probably see a lot more games out there. I'm happy with this being free, though. I think it should be free.
Well, I'm interested, Teri, in what you thought of the developer experience provided by Amazon, and how you worked through any of the challenges you faced as you built the game.
Actually, this was my first foray into JavaScript. I usually do a lot of low-level coding, C and assembly language, and C++. So, I know a lot of other languages, but I never bothered with web-based languages or, Java, JavaScript, that sort of thing. So during Christmas, I decided when I started to port this over, it was also a learning experience with that language. It was pretty easy to just move from C to Java. But I thought that the tools were pretty good. Being a seasoned programmer, it wasn't difficult to get it working right away. One of the nice things I like about this system, and same with Android, is that you can buy the real product and test on the real product. You don't have to worry about getting special provisions or having some special hardware to test on. It just works, and that's very handy.
Certainly. So, so talk to me about the game and the developer experience when you were with the voice interactions. Did you have any challenges when you were either capturing a response from a user, or a player, or processing something?
Generally, I think the Echo does a pretty good job. Actually, I should mute. I've got one here, so it's going to start talking if I really go. It's muted.
This happens every single podcast. It's a rite of passage.
There you go. It's muted now, so it won't happen. I think Alexa does a pretty good job of understanding speech. The few words that I had trouble with in Colossal Cave, I'm still looking for workarounds. Like the plover room, she pronounces plover, but that's okay. If you say in, it gets confused with inner inventory. But for the most part, everything works. I was able to put in every word from the game and get it to work. Some of the special words like quit, quit, close, which kind of circumvent the code and immediately quit the app, had to be re-engineered. So instead of saying quit, which is a legitimate command in Advent or Colossal Cave, I had to say quit adventure. And those are listed inside a list commands command that I put inside the program.
I've got a question for you, Teri. So the big news this week in terms of Amazon and the Alexa ecosystem is tomorrow comes out the Echo Show. Have you been following that at all?
Oh yeah, I have 2 on pre-order.
Okay. Yeah, and by the way, that deal to get $100 off when you buy 2 is kind of crazy. That's the type of thing I
That
think we'll look back and say, "Wow, you're joking."
Yeah, that's why I have two on pre-order.
I've got one coming to me, and I'm very excited about it. But share with me your what if you had your druthers and could develop a game. You've already developed a game for Alexa now. What would you want to do with the Echo Show? What's the first thing you'd like to do with this combination Alexa voice assistant plus camera plus screen form factor?
Well, a lot of that we're doing already through the Alexa app. I mean, I don't know if you've noticed, but if you open up the Alexa app while you're playing Colossal Cave, you'll see it display all of the rooms, the name of the room, the description of your room, and what your current command was to get there.
No, that would have helped.
Yeah, it comes in quite handy. So that, I am assuming, since I don't have the show yet, will transfer over to the show. So as soon as you play on an Echo Show, you will see that displayed, and I won't have to change the code at all.
That's awesome. That's cool. Yeah, I will have to check that out tomorrow. Assuming Amazon brings my Echo Show on time, which I'm sure they will. What about, and let me ask you this, since this has come up on some of our previous Voice First FM podcasts. So the Echo Show obviously is coming out this week, but also making news about the same time as the Echo Look, which, are you familiar with that device?
Right, yeah.
You know, that's a device that I think is not going to have much relevance to the world of games, but it has a whole lot of relevance to an ongoing privacy discussion. How does that device strike you? You know, we've heard some people on the podcast say, I'm not too big of a fan, or some people, I see the potential there. What do you think about the Echo Look?
Yeah, I don't wish to criticize something I haven't tried yet. I don't have a strong interest in it, but that doesn't mean it isn't going to be.
With Alexa development, you have to really focus on the phrasing of the intent and the intents that you develop. Can you talk a bit about your experience working through that with this game?
Sure. So you're familiar with how it's done. Basically you have the intents, yes, and then the utterances, which takes, yes, the intents, and then you assign words to them that you can say, which will, yes, send you an utterance or send you an intent. And then your code, mm-hmm, gets the intent string, right, which is the Lambda function. Mm-hmm. When I first started writing this, like I said, I started doing this over Christmas break, just to basically do something else. I like doing different puzzly-like things. And the first programs I wrote, I've written a few Alexa programs. Most of them aren't published. One other one is, though, called Sequence Master, which allows you to guess a sequence of colors, which is a lot of fun. But anyway,
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, it's a great game, and it uses the tablet too, and you'd probably see it on Echo Show when you get one. Anyway, whenever I write a game like that, setting up the utterance tables and setting up those words is the first thing I did, and then I start writing the Lambda function to accept those. So it's fairly straightforward. And when I moved on to Colossal Cave, I started similarly, except I started with the database, and the database was a puzzle because I didn't have a way of deciphering it. So it was just kind of a fun thing for me to do. I don't know if you've seen the Colossal Cave database, but it's really a neat thing to look at if you've never seen it. It's got all of the rooms broken down into, room number 1 is you're on a road, and room number 2 is you're in a building, or on a hill, and 3 is in a building, and whatever. But next to those is this little cryptic set of numbers, and a table with some numbers and some words, and those words the numbers tell you what those words will do in that room. And since I'd played the game so much, I was able to look at those numbers and figure out what they did, and that was the puzzle for me. That was the fun. So the first one I wrote, when I just put it in, was to have the database sit there and let me move from room to room and do nothing else. And so I created the intents for north, south, east, west, up, down, all of the directions, and the utterances for those, and then had it move through the database. And once I had that in, then I said, okay, well, what's the next thing to do? Oh, I need to have inventory and grab and take things and drop things. And so I put that in. And being so familiar with the game, playing it for decades, I was able to add command after command until finally my utterance table and my lambda function was able to do everything that the original one did.
That's awesome. It sounds like that this game really naturally lent itself to this medium, as well as your experience with it, and just having you write it. It seemed like, as you were talking through it, it just kind of came together. You were able to kind of naturally break down the problem and incrementally implement.
Yeah.
Fair to say?
And even certain things you could add enhancements to it. Like instead of just saying on, off, or light, you can say turn on the lamp, and that's just an added utterance to your intent. So the program just gets the command lamp on, which is the intent, but the utterance for lamp on can be light, can be turn on lamp, can be on, and all of those just send lamp on. So yeah, it's very straightforward and very handy.
Did you run into any situations where it wasn't a natural utterance for a user? I know I've run into that before.
Yeah. Well, there's the thing is, this program was written in the 70s by programmers, pretty much for programmers, because back then those are the people that were playing the game. So the puzzles are hard. The puzzles are meant to be tricky. Even knowing how to kill a dwarf is a puzzle. And I've watched people play, and it's a little frustrating for me, and I'm teetering on, like I've added the command path hint because people might get into a point and not know which direction to go, and saying go north and having Alexa say there's no way to go that direction. Well, south, there's no way to go that direction. It gets tedious. So I added this command path hint that would have it search the database and tell you what paths are actually available from that position, so you don't have to keep asking. It costs you 2 points to have the ability to use path hint, which isn't going to kill you, but it will stop you from getting a perfect game. And I added a special prize for anybody who gets a perfect game, which is kind of neat. So far, I don't think anybody's done it except me.
That's awesome.
I'm going to have to go do that now.
Yeah.
It's not easy. Yeah. Though I can tell you I do it pretty much, it depends on the random number generator, but I can do it in about an hour. I have an Alexa, I have an Echo Dot in my car, and when I drive to work in the morning, my commute is about an hour, and I play the game, trying to win the game before I get to work. And sometimes I've done it maybe 3 times now, where I won the game before I got to the parking lot. That's a fun
See,
feeling.
Alexa needs to add achievements now. There needs to be an achievement unlocked for managing to do that.
Well, I tell you, I can't thank I can't thank Don Woods enough for, I basically sent him, I finished this thing in December. Well, didn't finish it, but had it running in December. I was playing it in early January and knew I wanted to have other people play it. And I sent a message to Don Woods. I looked for emails for Don Woods and Willie Crowther, the original authors of it. I wasn't able to reach Willie Crowther, but I found an email for Don Woods, and I sent it to him saying, hey, I've got this. It's 95% done. If you could tell me, is it public domain, or do you have, can you give me your blessing? And he got back to me about a week later and said, hey, that sounds great. Yes, you have my blessing to put it on the Alexa. So
nice.
That was just awesome. And yeah, as a thank you, I sent him a couple Echo Dots so he could play it, because he didn't even own an Echo. And I want him to play it too, because it's just really neat. It turned out really well, and I play it daily. I love the game.
You were sharing that you are a arcade enthusiast and owner of perhaps multiple arcade machines, at least at minimum, including Adam's Family Pinball. What is your favorite video game of all time?
Gravatar.
Gravatar.
Yeah, it's an obscure title. It's a color XY monitor from Atari. It was actually, it didn't do very well in the arcades because it was very difficult to play. And so the arcade owners weren't making a lot of money on it. And once you got good at it, you could play it for forever. Often I'd play for over 30 minutes or an hour on one quarter.
So share with me and the audience what you do in Gravatar.
It's kind of a mix between Asteroids and Lunar Lander. You start with a little asteroids-type triangular ship, and you're in a solar system, and you fly that ship with a thruster and a left-right, fly toward the nearest planet, and then the screen expands out and shows you the surface of the planet in 2D color vector graphics with little bases on it, and you have to hover down and shoot all of the little red bases, and you can suck up little blue pods that give you more fuel. And it uses fairly realistic 2D physics to manipulate it. So it was difficult to fly, but once you got used to it, it was enjoyable and addictive.
So if you had, an hour left to live and you got to play one game, it would be Gravatar.
No, it would be a pinball machine.
Okay, so now we're finding out the truth here.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite pinball machine?
Oh, I don't have one favorite. Medieval Madness, Adam's Family, Bride of Pinbot, Stern Pirates of the Caribbean.
So, and we were talking to Teri about favorite arcade game in general, and I remembered one after we got going with the podcast that is probably my favorite. I mentioned NBA Jam earlier. I mentioned a couple of others, but the Simpsons arcade game. Did you ever play that?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That was legendary. For me, anyway. That was spent a lot of quarters on that.
Yeah.
What's your favorite arcade game of all time?
Besides Gravatar?
Well, yeah. Okay. So you mentioned Gravatar. Give me something in the 90s
I like all
era.
of the 80s classics. Yeah, I mean, I've got Tempest. I've got a lot of these games because I collect them. Yeah, Tempest and Star Wars. 90s games. I'm not a big Capcom fan. Probably Radical Bikers or Hydro Thunder. Yeah, Hydro Thunder.
Now, I played Hydro Thunder. That was amazing. I don't think I ever played Radical Bikers.
Yeah, it was a Geico game from Italy that got moved over and was published by Atari. It's a fun game where you rode this little motorcycle moped type deal, and you delivered pizzas. And you had to get the pizza to the destination within a certain amount of time, and there's obstacles in your way. It was a lot of fun.
Interesting.
So that reminds me of and this will, I guess, place me in the proper date category. But I grew up in the Super Nintendo era, and I really enjoyed a game called Paperboy.
Oh, sure. That was an arcade game before it was on the SNES.
Certainly. Oh, certainly. It was just when you were recounting, the previous game, that is immediately what popped in my mind, because you had to throw the papers, you had to hit certain obstacles. It was tons and tons of fun. I also I guess breaking news this week is that the Super Nintendo or the SNES is going to be re-released as a console. Have either of you heard of that?
Yeah.
Yes, I have.
Yes, that is absolutely insane. And I saw it this morning on the Twitters, and I thought, you know what? I think I'm just going to have to buy it. And I thought, well, I wonder how much they're going to sell it for. And I thought $79 is going to be amazing. So I did see also too that Nintendo promises to, have enough quantity to, to last, since the other Nintendo that they released didn't.
We'll believe that when we see it.
Yeah,
Well,
I
that's true.
couldn't get my hands on one of those other ones.
No,
Right.
yeah, no, I couldn't either. I wanted to get an NES Classic, and yeah, I mean,
Sure.
you can go to eBay, I guess, whenever you want. But yeah, I was unsuccessful with that too, Terry. But the SNES Classic, did you see, Terry, that has Star Fox 2 on it, which is previously unreleased?
Oh no, I heard that it was going to have an unreleased game. I didn't know that was there. Huh, you got me
Yes.
on one.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
Kevin, the SNES Classic has a game on it that has never been released commercially before, Star Fox 2. So it's got
Yes.
Star Fox 1 on it, but it also has Star Fox 2. And yeah, Terry, if this may be the only thing that I can stump you on or mention that you didn't already know about. So
I'm glad you brought it up. I'm
I'm
glad
going
to
to
find
savor
out.
it for just a minute. Let me ask you one more question while we're talking just general games. What's the first game you ever played?
Oh wow. Oh, it would probably be one of those. They had these way back when, but you drop a nickel in the top. It was a speed game, where you put a nickel in the top or a penny in the top of the machine, and then you'd push in this button that slowly would pop out, and when the button popped out, it would drop the nickel down a chute, and you'd have to push the button back in before it hit the bottom, and then it would trap the coin wherever it was when you push the button in. And so it was basically a reflexes, how fast could you press the button after it dropped it game. And I was fascinated by that. I mean, it's so simple, but it ate my nickels.
And that was fun.
Oh, it was great fun. Yeah.
No, I'm teasing you.
For a
The
5-year-old, it was awesome.
My parents had a Texas Instruments computer. I guess it was called a computer that had games like Alpiner and Parsec and stuff that I grew up playing. But the first computer game, the first sort of seminal game experience I had, and I don't remember which one was first, but I played Dexter on PC, I guess, some sort of IBM PC, and also a game called BattleTech, the Crescent Hawk's Inception on PC. Did you ever play either of those?
No, I haven't.
The BattleTech game was very sophisticated. The Dexter game was like you're a transformer, basically. You're a robot that can turn into a jet, and it was a very action-oriented game. The BattleTech game, I think, was one of the first RPGs that was on IBM PC-compatible computers. And then I also have very vivid memories of playing what was, if it wasn't the first real-time strategy game, it was among the first, Dune 2 Battle of Arrakis.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, then that was later. I think that came out on PC in 87 or 88, and that was back in the day of EB Games and Electronics Boutique, Electronics Boutique and Babbage's
Oh, yeah.
competing against each other, and neither of them ever had the game, so I had to get some sort of PC magazine, whether it's PC Gamer or something else. And back in those days, the advertisements in those games were these massive, tiny print catalog listings of games. Do you remember that? Do you have any memory of this? You know what I'm talking about?
I spent a lot of time at Babbage's. So yes, both of those places actually.
Yeah, and so, but Dune, the Battle of Arrakis, was such apparently an esoteric, lightly produced game that my parents had to order it for Christmas for me one year in some mail order thing in a PC magazine. But those were the days. Those were fun times.
That was one of the places I'd go to get Macintosh games. So I did a lot of Mac
Nice.
programming in the mid '80s. So
Terry, we greatly appreciate your generosity with us this evening, sharing some of your time and your experience and your deep expertise with us. So we greatly appreciate you.
thanks. It was a pleasure.
So for Kevin Old and myself, this is episode 3 of the Alexa podcast. Thank you for listening, and until next time.